Let's go back in time to 1983, a time when popular culture was very different. Dallas and Dynasty dominated the TV screens. Michael Jackson's Thriller album dominated the charts. For the first time, Michael Jackson did the moonwalk in public on March 25, 1983, during a television special titled Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, and Forever. The Police's Every Breath You Take was also a hit. Also in 1983, Mario Brothers, the video game, was released as an arcade game. With their provocative themes and daring, unconventional style, Madonna was also a huge hit. Wearing fishnet stockings, fingerless lace gloves, leather jackets, and crucifix accessories, she created a rebellious, edgy look, and teens and young girls everywhere wanted to dress and be like Madonna. On one of the windiest nights in Hinton, Alberta, Canada, a panicked mother shouted, "Shelly-Anne, Shelly-Anne," over the highway. Her yelling faded into the windy, dark night 41 years ago when her only daughter, Shelly-Anne Bacsu, disappeared into the night. Shelly-Anne was only 16 years old in 1983, and on the evening of May the 3rd, she called her mother from a friend's house to let her know that she would be home in about 15 minutes. Shelly-Anne never arrived. Her boyfriend called her house around 9 asking for Shelly-Anne. Right there and then, Shelly-Anne's mother, Muriel Bacsu, knew something was terribly wrong. Muriel called the police right away and set into motion a self-described waking nightmare that continues to this day, 41 years later. You may wonder why I cover so many missing persons cases. Well, I'm going to share my reason with you. Also, I think it's why I'm so fascinated by true crime and always have been. I have a close family member who's been missing for over 35 years, and I've seen what it does to the family. I might tell you more details about that case sometime, but for today, that's all I'm going to say, is that I know what it's like to be affected by having someone close in your family missing for so many years. So I like to tell the stories of the missing because they hold a special meaning for me, but more importantly, I believe that they need to be told. Shelly-Anne Bacsu was born in 1967 to parents Muriel and Sandy, and she had an older brother named Tim. She was 16 when she disappeared and lived in Hinton, Alberta, Canada, which was a small town with a population of about 8,500 people back then. Hinton is located on the Yellowhead Highway, or Highway 16, which is also known as the infamous Highway of Tears, in the Athabasca River Valley. Now, if you haven't heard of the Highway of Tears, it is a stretch of Highway 16 between Prince George and Prince Rupert in British Columbia, where many women, mostly Indigenous women, have disappeared or been found murdered. The town of Hinton is about 15 minutes east of the Jasper National Park and 300 kilometers west of Edmonton. Shelly-Anne's family say that she was tiny, at only 4 feet 11 inches tall, but made up for her size with her bigger-than-life personality. Quote, "She loved life and loved people. She lit up a room when she walked in, and she was very trusting of everyone." And Muriel feels that this trust in people may have been what led to Shelly-Anne's mysterious disappearance 41 years ago. She was described as a normal teenager who loved Christmas and was always willing to help out. Muriel said, quote, "If somebody was having a hard day, she'd just pick them right up. She didn't care who they were, what they were. She did not care if they came from a wealthy family or if they were the poorest ones in town. And I think that's what got her into trouble. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's why Shelly-Anne isn't with us today." So on May the 3rd, 1983, the day that Shelly-Anne disappeared, she was babysitting at the Sunset Trailer Court in Hinton for her boyfriend's brother. She called her mom around 8 p.m. to let her know that she'd be home in about 15 minutes. She said that she had a friend that was taking her home. Her mom sweetly asked her if she should make her favorite noodle dish, and Muriel went on about her business. Around 8:15 p.m. that night, Shelly-Anne was seen walking west down Alberta Highway 16 in Hinton, meaning that she was making her way home from her boyfriend's brother's house in the Sunset Trailer Park. Shelly-Anne lived in a rural, secluded house off of Highway 40. Her home and the trailer park were about 3.5 kilometers away, or about a 10-minute drive. Around 9 p.m., Shelly-Anne's boyfriend called her house looking for her. Quote, "I told him that wasn't funny, but right then I felt it. Something terrible, something was very wrong." In that moment, Muriel realized that Shelly-Anne was missing. Shelly-Anne's boyfriend, who didn't have a way to get her home, told Muriel that her friend wasn't able to pick her up after all, so she walked down Highway 16 toward her house. Worried, Muriel called the police right away. But of course, the Hinton RCMP told her that she had to wait 24 hours to report a missing person. So taking matters into their own hands, Shelly-Anne's dad Sandy and her 17-year-old brother Tim drove around looking for her. and in spite of the dark and windy night, Muriel set out on foot to search for her daughter. Quote, "The wind was awful that night, one of the windiest nights in Hinton that I can remember. The wind was howling. It pierced right through me, but I walked up and down that highway, calling out her name." Shelly-Anne was nowhere in sight. So Shelly-Anne walking home from the trailer park was unusual, according to her mother. So right off the bat, something is stinky with this story. Firstly, Muriel didn't think anyone would walk that far alone at 8 p.m., let alone Shelly-Anne, who had rheumatoid arthritis and wouldn't have walked that far anyway. She also knew that she could call home and someone would pick her up. Quote, "There were no cell phones back then, but she would have called us from her boyfriend's house," Muriel told Dateline. "We just believe something happened to her after she called me." Now, the RCMP have interviewed Shelly-Anne's boyfriend, but no information about that has been released to the public. Nor could I find any interviews where the boyfriend has spoken out about Shelly-Anne's disappearance, let alone even his name. What we do know is that the boyfriend told her mother only that she started walking because her friend couldn't pick her up. But allegedly, no eyewitnesses at the trailer park say they ever saw Shelly-Anne begin her walk. I don't know. It's possible that just nobody saw her, or maybe she'd never left the trailer. We simply do not know. When looking into this case, though, I didn't find anything that suggested the boyfriend was involved. I also didn't find anything saying that he was cleared either. And Muriel has been very cautious about what she has said over the years and has never accused anybody or repeated any names since it's still an open investigation. But I did get the feeling from her interviews over the years that she has her suspicions as to what happened to Shelly-Anne, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So witnesses did come forward and say that they saw Shelly-Anne walking westbound along Highway 16 with her school books, and that she wasn't hitchhiking. You have to remember that hitchhiking was pretty common back in 1983. Around the time that Shelly-Anne was supposed to have been walking home, a dark-colored van was also seen in the area. Some reports say that it was stopped near where she was last seen. Another witness reportedly told the RCMP that they, quote, remembered someone getting into a van with British Columbia license plates around the time that Shelly-Anne was last seen. Police haven't publicly named a person or persons of interest, just that they've interviewed several over the years and can't find the dark-colored van that was allegedly in the area when Shelly-Anne would have been walking. The RCMP say they searched extensively for this van and its occupants but couldn't find them. Now, if you're big into true crime, you know about scary murder vans. Maybe I'm thinking of TV shows too, but anyway, when I hear that a woman is missing and there's a van in the area, I get the creeps. So a missing persons report was filed 24 hours after Shelly-Anne was last seen. Police thought that Shelly-Anne had run away, even though her mom insisted that she didn't. Shelly-Anne's family, friends, and neighbors searched the wilderness in the days and weeks that followed her disappearance. The whole area is surrounded by wilderness with dense woods and a river, so Muriel said it seemed hopeless. She said that Shelly-Anne could literally be anywhere. I guess you could say it was a glimmer of hope, but I would guess it didn't feel like that to her family when some of her belongings were found on May the 7th, just off of Highway 40 and about 3 miles from where she lived. These items included her jacket, bra, pantyhose, student card, and a library book that she had checked out the day she disappeared. Now, after this discovery, police began to suspect foul play and that Shelly-Anne wasn't a runaway. The search for Shelly-Anne continued, but it was tough because Hinton and the surrounding areas are so remote with nothing but unpopulated forests for miles and miles. Also, Hinton has a small RCMP force, so scouring the vast search area with little to no leads was tough. No sign of Shelly-Anne or what happened to her have ever been found. Most of the investigative force shifted away from Shelly-Anne's case in 1985, but the case did remain open. Muriel told Dateline there was a stretch of about 15 years after the 10th anniversary of Shelly-Anne's disappearance where she didn't even hear from the RCMP. Quote, "I'm upset and frustrated. I'm not getting any answers, and now I fear I'm never going to find out what happened to my daughter. I know it's been 30 years, over 30 years. That doesn't mean she wasn't important." The RCMP looked into the case again in 2010 as part of the Highway of Tears investigation, where Shelly-Anne is actually the only Alberta woman listed. Again, no leads came from this. RCMP authorities again pleaded with the community to come forward with any information that could help the investigation on the 30th anniversary in 2013. Quote, "Although time has passed, we remain committed to finding Shelly-Anne," said Hinton RCMP Corporal Trevor Summers. "As in those early days of her disappearance, we continue to encourage anyone with information to come forward. Our hope is that someone will help us solve the mystery surrounding her disappearance. Also in 2013, Muriel started a Facebook page to share memories of her daughter and collect any information that would help solve the mystery. Shelly-Anne's file, which fills 147 banker's boxes, is now with the Historical Homicide Unit, which re-examines unsolved homicides. It is still an open case, and they've followed up on new tips and re-interviewed witnesses over the years. In 2019, at the family's request, the unit looked at the case again, using new methods like collecting DNA at the scene where Shelly-Anne's clothes were found. Now, 2 DNA profiles were actually found, one that belonged to Shelly-Anne and another, which likely belonged to Shelly-Anne's kidnapper or killer, and has no match in the RCMP's database. Now, could this DNA be useful for genetic genealogy? Possibly. Based on the personal belongings found and the passage of time, police think Shelly-Anne was murdered, and right now they're focused on giving the family closure. Staff Sergeant Jason Zazulek, and I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, told Global News in 2018, quote, "We believe, unfortunately, that Shelly-Anne probably was a victim of foul play and her remains have never been found. It's very, very unusual for someone to leave no trail, no footprint." Authorities say they have interviewed numerous persons of interest in the decades since Shelly-Anne vanished, but no arrests have ever been made. In 1991, the Bacsu family moved away from Hinton but continued to search for Shelly-Anne. Throughout the years, Muriel told Dateline that she had grown increasingly frustrated with the lack of progress in her daughter's case, and she described to Dateline that the last 3 decades were like a waking nightmare. The heartbreak continued for the family when their only other child, Tim, passed away from cancer, which I believe was around 2014. In her 70s, Muriel said that she wanted peace and she wanted to know what happened, telling Dateline that she has accepted the fact that Shelly-Anne probably won't be found alive. It's just that she still wants to know what happened. She believes there was a, quote, sexually motivated accident that night that went terribly wrong, resulting in Shelly-Anne's death. Quote, "I'm not looking for justice. I don't think I'll get it. I just want to find my daughter's remains so I can lay her to rest and give her peace. And for us, there is no such thing as closure, but there is peace. All we want is peace." Now, when Muriel refers to this sexually motivated accident that happened that night, I am not sure if she is saying that she believes something happened at the trailer park or when Shelly-Anne left the trailer park. Muriel was also on a podcast called Can I Help You Find Your Missing Loved One, where she said, quote, "I can't name names, but I think someone from Hinton knows exactly what happened." And from a small town, there probably has been a lot of rumors, and it's very possible that she may have some idea of what happened, but obviously can't prove it. For the police, Staff Sergeant Jason Zazulek said, quote, "People out there do have information. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable sharing it. Over time and changes in circumstances, maybe that's changed. Maybe now is the time. And like I always say, somebody knows something." The RCMP say that they are committed to solving this case and encourage anyone who may have heard or seen anything around that time to come forward. "We never close cases, no matter how old," said Sergeant Zazulek. "This case is one that really touches the heart, and we haven't given up." Muriel and Sandy feel blessed that Shelly-Anne was a part of their lives for 16 years. Quote, "She was our baby and our bright shining star of our lives. But that star was dimmed too soon. We'll never know what she could have been. She wanted to be a teacher, but she never got to graduate, or get married, or have children, or live the life she deserved. It was all taken from her. We have none of that because someone made a bad choice." At the time of her disappearance, Shelly-Anne was 4 feet, 11 inches tall and weighed about 80 to 90 pounds. She was wearing a burgundy velour sweater, a burgundy and gray jacket, gray sneakers, blue jeans with a stripe down the legs, and a green emerald ring with opal earrings. She is described as a white female with brown eyes and brown hair with a freckled complexion. Anyone with any information about Shelly-Anne's whereabouts is asked to contact the Hinton RCMP at 780-865-2455 or the RCMP K Division at 780-412-5424. You can also submit your tips to Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Thank you for taking the time to listen. So I've been working on trying to get this podcast more up to date and giving it more of a social media presence. So please do look it up on Facebook and Instagram as Unjust Crimes. I've also been working on creating a website, which is quite the work in progress, so keep tuned for updates on that. I've also been asked many times in the past how people can donate, which I have to say is pretty amazing that anyone would want to do that, so I've decided to add a PayPal link to my YouTube channel. You can find it on my channel's main page, and I just want to say to anyone that may want to donate, man, thank you so much. In the meantime, please do subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And until next time, stay safe out there.